On this week's episode of Ride the Lightning, the Tesla unofficial podcast, the new Model 3 long range now qualifies for the $7,500 point-of-sale federal EV tax credit. The highest performing employees at Tesla will now be rewarded with stock compensation. Elon Musk begins work on Tesla Master Plan Part 4, and more. What's happening, friends? Alongside a just walked and thus happily content Daisy the Boxer, I'm Ryan McCaffrey. This is Ride the Lightning, the Tesla unofficial podcast, the palindromatic episode 464. Yes, the episode reads the same forwards and backwards. 464 for June 23rd, 2024. Well, it's been another busy week of Tesla. I personally had some Tesla excitement, the good kind, thankfully not a bad kind, but I had a little excitement this week. I got a somewhat unexpected email that landed in my inbox, and that was my invitation to order a Foundation Series Cybertruck. Those of you that have been listening for a long time know that I didn't put my reservation in until quite late. In fact, I couldn't even quite remember when it was, so I had to go back and look up the date in my email, and it was August 29th, 2022, so just a couple months shy of 2 years ago, definitely towards the later end of the reservation list. And if you're a tracker of such things, tracking which reservation numbers have been invited to configure Foundation Series Cybertrucks, mine starts with 11777. So that means that Tesla must have plowed through all of the 2021 reservations, invited all of those folks, and as we can tell from mine now, from the end of August, almost all of the 2022s pretty quickly here in recent weeks. I mean, if you recall, it seemed like it took forever just to get past the day one reservations. Now, that does make sense when you consider that production was at its slowest in the beginning, the fewest number of trucks per week, and there was a huge volume of day one reservations. We don't have access to a graph showing the day by day or week by week or month by month reservations from Tesla, but if we did, I suspect we would see a huge spike of reservations in the first 1, 2, 3 days, and then, yes, tail off, and slowly sort of make its way down, but with also that huge quantity up front as well. So in any case, the end of the Foundation series really does seem to be upon us now. Obviously, Elon told us exactly that at the annual shareholder meeting last week on last week's podcast. And me getting an invitation with a August 29th, 2022 reservation would seem now that my prediction that everyone on the reservation list, all 2 million people, would get a chance to order a Foundation Series if you were okay with paying the premium, it does indeed seem like everybody on the reservation list will get that opportunity. If you're curious, my delivery estimates, because of course I did log into the design studio, even though I've seen it before, there was nothing new, but of course I wanted to log in on my account and take a look at it anyway. My delivery estimates were showing June to August as the window for delivery on a dual motor. In other words, potentially right away, but also very much potentially not. And I wonder if that could be a geographic thing where if you're in Texas near the factory or California where just a lot of orders are coming from, that you might get one very quickly. But if you're elsewhere, say, I don't know, just up in Montana, North Dakota, down in Georgia, something like that, maybe it would take longer and with transport, and you'd be on the longer end of that wait. But then in any case, June to August is what it was showing for me when I logged in yesterday. The Cyber Beast, meanwhile, when I clicked on that, that is showing for me as a Q4 delivery. It says October to December. Now, if I were to form a hypothesis from this, and of course, there's no guarantee it'll be correct. Let me make that clear up front. But you guys know me. I like to make predictions and form theories and hypotheses. My guess, based on my delivery estimates here, is that the first non-Foundation Series, aka general production deliveries, are going to occur in Q4. Don't know specifically when, but it could be as early as October. But I think October or somewhere in Q4 for the dual motor. But I think that the first non-Foundation Series general production Cyber Beasts won't be until Q1. I'm only basing that off of the current Foundation Series delivery estimates that I just gave you, but it's certainly possible that Foundation Series Cyber Beasts and general production Cyber Beasts might overlap, but that doesn't really make sense to me. So I doubt that's going to be the case. But anyway, this is super awesome. It means we are getting closer to general production, which is what so many of us, myself included, are really looking forward to. Next this week, a quick but very important public service announcement if, like me, you use dog mode in your Tesla. I saw this on Drive Tesla Canada, who wrote, "There is a bug in the latest 2024.20.1 software update that is causing dog mode to not work properly, creating a potentially dangerous situation and putting your pets at risk in hot weather. The 2024.20.1 software update has broken dog mode, and it may not be immediately apparent to owners." Drive Tesla Canada says, "We have received one confirmed report, and there have been multiple reports from owners on social media that they have been able to activate dog mode and that the screen shows the appropriate messaging as if the feature is working as designed. The car does send a notification to the Tesla mobile app saying, 'Problem with dog mode, return to car immediately,' but depending on when you receive the notification and if you actually notice it, your pet could quickly be in a dangerous situation. Tesla is aware of the bug causing dog mode to not work properly and is calling it a, quote, known characteristic of current firmware, end quote. The company is working on a fix, but there is currently no estimate for when it will be ready and deployed to the fleet." Now, if you are on FSD, you probably aren't on this version. And I say that because I'm on FSD version 12.3.6 as of this recording on Friday night, which translates to overall version 2024.14.9. But if you're not an FSD person, you should double check which version you're on, particularly, well, really, if you never use dog mode, you don't really have to worry about it. But if you do, you should check that version. And you can do it by, there's a couple different ways, but the quickest, easiest way you can do it, probably right now without having to be in your car, is open your Tesla app and scroll all the way to the bottom where it shows your version number in small print. Now, obviously, this is, as Drive Tesla Canada noted, a potentially dangerous bug. So I have zero doubt that the Tesla team, they've already said they're working on a fix, but I suspect that a hot fix for this, pardon the phrasing, hot fix, but it's an unfortunate coincidence there, but a hot fix will be out as soon as possible. I would be willing to bet lunch on that. In fact, my hope, and even, I won't say expectation, but I will say I wouldn't be surprised if by the time you hear this, a fix has been pushed out to the fleet. We move on now to a big long run of much happier news. That was the only downer of a thing that I needed to tell you about, but it was important for this week. Everything else from here on out is going to be pretty fun. So we start here. Another quick little nugget as I get the podcast warmed up for you. As you all know, I am very excited anytime the Tesla Roadster, the next-gen Tesla Roadster, gets mentioned. I get my faith in that project renewed anytime Elon or Tesla just bring it up in any way, shape, or form, I guess, other than mentioning it's delayed, which thankfully they haven't done in a while. But we got another mention of the new Roadster this week, and what gives me an extra dash of hope on this one is that Elon brought it up unprompted. It wasn't in response to another post on X about the Roadster or an interviewer's question about the next-gen Roadster. Well, I guess he was responding to another post on X, but that post wasn't about the Roadster. He was replying to longtime Silicon Valley businessman, and if I remember correctly, this gentleman's also a friend of Elon's. His name is Mark Andreessen, who himself seemed to be responding to a maybe somewhat sarcastic post about how awesome modern technology is and how we take it for granted. But anyway, the post in question, which the original post came from the CTO of a crypto company, had said, quote, "Sucks so bad that we asked for flying cars and all we're getting so far is supercomputers in every pocket, machines that can seemingly think, worldwide internet coverage from a cloud of satellites, verifiable computing in zero knowledge, programmable sovereign money, private ... Hence the sarcasm as he lists a bunch of great things that we have in technology these days. And then Mark gave his own somewhat sarcastic, agreeing response in GIF form. Elon, I'm realizing here that explaining tweets is probably not the best way to do this, but anyway, just trying to set up the context for you. Elon then jumped into the conversation and just offered, "The new Tesla Roadster can fly." And I don't think he's being sarcastic, because we know Elon has said this very thing on multiple occasions before. And yes, I do acknowledge we are now over 6.5 years past the unveiling of the next-gen Roadster, with, thus far, nothing to show for it. And yes, we'll all believe it when we see it when it comes to this car. But this at least suggests to me that Elon is still thinking about the new Roadster, and then they're actually working on it, which in and of itself is a big deal, because I'm not sure that Elon has always been thinking about this car at any given time over the past 6.5 years. But I'm glad it's back on the front burner and it is back in development. Now, Elon had told us that we might expect a re-reveal of the car around the end of this year. So if we factor in Elon time, and I say that with nothing but kindness, there's no malice attached to that. Even Elon himself has recognized Elon time at this point. But if we factor that in, then hopefully that means the reveal happens sometime around the spring of 2025, which would be roughly less than a year away. Actually, I guess as I'm recording this, it's the first official day of summer, or second day. I can't remember if it was the 20th or 21st. Anyway, spring 2025 will hopefully be the reveal for the new Roadster, the re-reveal for the new Roadster. And obviously, I can't wait. If and when that day ever comes, I will be ecstatic, and I will apologize to you in advance right now for whatever that podcast episode ends up being, because I'm probably going to be just on cloud nine. And if and when the day ever comes that deliveries of the next-gen Roadster actually begin, I will be in permanent orbit, hovering above Earth. I will just be that happy that I'll be levitating above the planet. That's where I'll find myself. Okay, I told you there was plenty of good news, so let's keep the good news rolling. This time, good news for Tesla employees. Tesla is set to introduce a new stock-based compensation plan that's aimed at rewarding high-performing employees. Another tip of the cap to Drive Tesla Canada, who wrote this up and said, the announcement was made through an internal memo seen by Reuters, where Musk emphasized that the new stock options would be granted based on exceptional performance. The email stated that over the coming weeks, the company would conduct a comprehensive review to identify and reward top performers. Quote, over the next few weeks, Tesla will be doing a comprehensive review to provide stock option grants for exceptional performance, Musk said in the email, which went to employees around the world. Additionally, there will be an ongoing program to award spot option grants to employees who demonstrate outstanding contributions to the company's success. Well, that is a heck of an incentive to excel, given that the Tesla stock is going to be worth a heck of a lot of money if the company even gets halfway to the valuation estimate that Elon gave out on the annual shareholder meeting last week. Now, that said, I have heard from a number of people over the years that have worked at Tesla that it's extremely difficult to get high marks on your performance review at that company, because excellence, it's not just a sentence, it is an actual real thing. Excellence is very much expected as the default at Tesla. Still, though, this would definitely give me a little extra pep in my step if I worked at Tesla, and I'm sure it's doing exactly that for lots of employees right now. So I will say congratulations in advance to the employees who are going to get that stock reward in the coming weeks. Before I continue on this week's episode of Ride the Lightning, I wanted to mention that I hope all of you who are kindly supporting the podcast on Patreon, which you can do on my Patreon page found at patreon.com/Tesla Podcast, enjoyed this week's lightning round mini episode, which turned out to not be so mini. Well, it was about a little thought exercise I went through about my next car purchase. Call it a stainless steel decision, if you will. If you are backing me on Patreon at that $10 per month tier or higher, check that out on Patreon if you haven't already. And if you're not supporting me yet on Patreon and you think, you know what, yes, Ryan, this is the time, I am happy to jump in and support you. Well, number one, thank you if you are able and willing to do that. And number two, you have 101 of those lightning round mini episodes to dig into, including that brand new one from this week. So you can check all of that out, all the information about supporting me on Patreon, which I'll remind you is always going to be voluntary. This podcast will always be free. It always has been free. The Patreon is a way that you can choose to voluntarily support me, and I try to give you some different thank you gifts, if you will, or gestures, if you are so kind as to back me on Patreon. Starting out with the early access to each week's episode, if you support me at that base $5 per month tier. If you step up to that most popular tier, that $10 a month tier, you'll get that early access each week, and you'll get those lightning round mini episodes each week. So check it all out at patreon.com/Tesla Podcast. If you want to do an annual pledge, just pledge once for an entire year, I say thank you to you for doing that by offering you a 10% discount on the annual pledge. And don't forget, there is a 7-day free trial for that $10 per month tier, so you can sign up without actually having to commit any money. If you just want to try out the Patreon, see what it's all about, patreon.com/Tesla Podcast. Okay, big news for Tesla and big news for all of us. This is our headline topic this week. The new Model 3 long-range dual motor now qualifies for the full $7,500 point-of-sale federal tax credit. This was announced by Tesla early this past week, confirmed by the IRS. You can go on the IRS website and see the Model 3 long range there now. The 341-mile range all-wheel drive Model 3 now starts at $40,000 if you qualify for that tax credit, which is a mere $1,000 more than the 272-mile rear-wheel drive base model that currently does not qualify for that $7,500 tax credit. As such, in my humble opinion, the long-range dual motor is an absolute no-brainer for the time being. If you can't budget that extra $1,000, I strongly encourage you, if you can at all, to just save a little bit longer, because your $1,000 will go a long, long way right there. Specifically, how much longer will it go? 69 nice miles longer is how much further that $1,000 will go. I mean, you've heard me say it before, and I'll say it again. Range is king, and this is a lot of extra range. Now, I understand that Sometimes you're in a position where you need a car right away. You're just not in a position to wait another month or two to save up a little more. Totally get it. I'm certainly not trying to tell you what to buy. I'm just pointing out that thanks to the tax credit, that long-range dual motor is an incredible value. Well, just in a vacuum, it's an incredible value. But compared as well to the base Model 3, it's an even more, perhaps, incredible value. I predicted that this would happen with the tax credit back when the new Model 3, the 3 Fresh, as we've been calling it, first went on sale at the beginning of the year. And I'm so glad that it has happened. And I would say relatively quickly, too. I mean, if you think about it, if you zoom out, as I like to do, it took Tesla less than 6 months to make whatever battery-related sourcing and or manufacturing changes that they needed to make in order to have the dual-motor long-range Model 3 qualify. Because it's massive for customers, and it's going to spike sales for Tesla, obviously. What I look at is, will we see evidence of that in the Q2 production and delivery numbers? Maybe is where I've landed with this. I'm not sure it will be clear in Q2 because a couple factors. One, it's June 21st as I record this, and the quarter ends in 9 days from now. Two, the Model 3 performance didn't exist at all in Q1 and even into Q2. And in fact, the 3 Fresh wasn't even ramped up in Q1 because it had just debuted. So there was already going to be a discrepancy between the Q1 and Q2 production and delivery numbers for Model 3 and Model Y. So I expect we will see better 3 and Y numbers quarter over quarter from Q1 to Q2. But I think Q3, I know this may just sound obvious. Well, it's like, of course, because Q3 will have the performance from day one, and it'll also have the long-range dual motor having the tax credit from the first day of Q3. But I would look for the Q2 to Q3 number to really see what happens in that 3Y production and delivery number. Q2 go into Q3. There is, however, as I hinted at a moment ago, one more big tax credit problem for Tesla to solve. And that is, of course, the base Model 3 and its LFP battery pack that, at least to the best of my knowledge, is sourced from China. So if Tesla can build that pack in Giga Nevada and source its contents from free trade countries per the terms of the Inflation Reduction Act, then the base Model 3 would qualify, and then you'd really see a huge spike in overall Model 3 sales. Because if that happened, and I'm sure that Tesla's doing everything they can in order to make that happen, and I am optimistic that they will solve it, because imagine a 272-mile range Model 3 that, because of the LFP battery, has all 272 of those miles available as daily usable range. Imagine that for a starting price out the door of $31,500 after the $7,500 credit. If that were to come true, that would cause a massive, massive demand spike. That would be the best value. The Model 3, the base Model 3, up until this week, with the long range now arguably taking the best value EV on the planet crown away from the base Model 3, but the base model could get it back and would get it back, certainly, if the tax credit can be applicable to that car and bring it down to $31,500. That would be incredible, and we would see a very substantial demand spike. And by the way, for a little cherry on this great news, remember too that Elon just said that FSD transfer will be back one more time in Q3, meaning that you could order the new long-range dual-motor Model 3 to replace potentially your older Model 3, because we're talking about a situation here where you already have FSD, and you could transfer your FSD over. So for 40 grand, you could get yourself a 341-mile range, all-wheel drive Model 3 that has really good performance, and just move your FSD that you paid for right over to it without having to pay a penny more. That sounds like a pretty darn good deal, if you ask me. Now, this topic was a perfect one for this week's Patreon poll. Again, vote on it every week at patreon.com/Tesla podcast. But unlike the lightning round mini episodes, you do not have to be backing me or supporting me in any way on Patreon in order to vote in each week's poll. It's open to the public. Anybody can stop on by and vote. The polls usually go up on Tuesday nights, and this week's poll question was, does the Model 3 Long Range's new $7,500 tax credit eligibility tempt you to buy one? 64% of you, I guess I shouldn't be too surprised, 2/3 of you that voted said, no, I'm not in the market for a new Tesla right now, / I'm buying a different Tesla. And I was thinking about you Cybertruck folks, which is me also, with that one. But 15% of you did say, maybe I wasn't considering the Model 3 before, but this price makes me think seriously about it. And 8% of you said, yes, a 341-mile range car for $40,000 is a no-brainer. I will now plan to purchase this car. And I'd like to apologize to my folks outside of the U.S., as a number of them pointed out in the comments very politely and kindly this week. I definitely should have put a poll option in there for I live outside the United States. So I will be better about that in the future, I promise. All right, moving along here. We've got more Tesla news for you this week, and it's more good news. See, I promised it was good news, and we're going to keep the good times rolling here. A no doubt reinvigorated Elon Musk, because, as I said last week, who wouldn't be after having their big pay package approved? Elon Musk took to X unprompted earlier this past week to talk about what he's working on at Tesla, and he posted simply, quote, working on the Tesla Master Plan Part 4, it will be epic. Obviously, after last week, I think this one will be headlined by Optimus and also autonomous transport. I don't think Vegas sports books would give you much action on those. And I suspect that really, if you think about it, we kind of got a sneak preview of Master Plan Part 4 at the annual shareholder meeting last week, where these two products featured very heavily. Elon straight up said he thinks these two things will be the primary drivers towards a potential $25 trillion valuation for the company. So yeah, I'd be willing to bet my favorite lunch, In-N-Out Burger, that the new Master Plan Part 4 will primarily be about those. But perhaps it will also address some vehicle sectors that Tesla has yet to break into that it wants to. I mean, remember, at the meeting last week, there were 3 vehicle renders that were shown under covers on the shareholder meeting presentation deck. One, as I said, looked like a van. I mean, maybe we hear a little something about that, for example. Although, if any unreleased vehicle other than the Cybercab is given a lot of virtual ink in Elon's 4th master plan, it'll probably be the car that I've been calling the Model 2.5. Tesla's more affordable vehicle, probably smaller as well, compact, probably a compact crossover SUV that'll be built on the company's existing manufacturing lines using their existing technologies that are in the other vehicles now. That would probably be the 3rd big pillar of this next era, or if you will, to use Elon's term, the next book of Tesla that will be outlined in this Master Plan Part 4. By the way, if you're newer to the Tesla world, the first 3 master plans are very much worth going back and reading. especially the first one, because, well, for two reasons. One, it's from 2006. Yes, that's right. 2 years before Tesla built and sold its first car, which is now 2006 is 18 years ago since Master Plan Part 1 was written. And the other reason I think it's so cool is not just how old it is at this point and the fact that it was written before they'd ever shipped a car, but because everything in it has happened. The entire thing from 2006 came true, and it's really cool to go back and read now, almost like a time capsule, except thousands upon thousands of people worked really hard at Tesla to actually make Master Plan Part 1 real, make it come true. Part 2, if you go back and read that one, introduced some concepts that Tesla is still working on today, like the rideshare network that's been mentioned repeatedly. That was brought up in Part 2. And Part 3 was definitely more of a bigger picture vision that is certainly still a work in progress as of today. Next this week, in fact, the final news item I've got for you. Hey, look, yet more good news. I told you it was going to be a good news parade after that PSA at the top of the podcast. Tesla once again has topped the Cars.com list of the most American-made cars for 2024. And if the boxer snoring is coming through on the microphone, we just have to have a good laugh about it, because that boxer is chopping some wood over there. There is a chainsaw going on. She's snoring really good. Anyway, 2024 Cars.com American-Made Index. Which cars are the most American? It is once again topped by the Tesla Model Y for the third year in a row. Rounding out the top 10, the Honda Passport, the Volkswagen ID4, good to see another EV. In fact, 3 of the top 5 are EVs, because number 4 is the Tesla Model S. Number 5, another Honda, the Honda Odyssey minivan, rounding out the top 5. 6 through 10, you've got another Honda, the Ridgeline. Toyota Camry at 7. The Jeep Gladiator pickup at number 8. The Tesla Model X at number 9. And the Lexus TX SUV at number 10. I'll go ahead and give you the rest of the... Well, no, let's talk for a second here. So, 3 Teslas cracked the top 10. You heard them, the Y, the S, and the X. Third year in a row that the Model Y has been number 1. As a random aside here, how the heck is there not a single Ford or GM car in there? It's disappointing. I mean, I'm not trying to pick on them. I don't have any beef with Ford or GM. I root for them because they're American car companies that are building cars, I guess, here, but maybe the parts aren't all American. But and Ford is certainly doing a good job on the EV front with the Lightning, and GM's starting to roll some stuff out. But it is still disappointing that there's not a single Ford or GM in the top 10. In fact, if you look at that whole top 10 I just read you, besides Tesla bringing 3 cars into the top 10, only one other American company has a car in there, and that's Jeep with the Gladiator. Now, if you're thinking, well, wait a second, hold on. Where's the Model 3? It is on the list at number 21. And I expect it probably didn't make the top 10 because of something we were talking about just a few minutes ago, the base Model 3's LFP battery pack being sourced from China rather than here, like the nickel-based packs for the Long Range 3 and the Performance 3. And we don't know for sure. We're not given the delineation, the strict count of which variants, how many of which variants are made. But I have to think that the base Model 3 is the highest volume Model 3. I would think there's probably, or at least it has been until now. This tax credit situation might swing it back to the long-range dual motor, at least for a while. But the battery pack in the base 3 is probably why the Model 3 fell all the way to number 21 on this list. If I get my wish from a few minutes ago and the base Model 3 does end up qualifying for the $7,500 federal tax credit at some point before the end of this year, then for next year's Cars.com index, I would expect the 3 Fresh to be, quite frankly, either number 1 or number 2 at that point, alongside the Model Y. Meanwhile, the Cybertruck, I would think next year, will probably join the top 10, maybe even top 5, because, well, what do we know about the Cybertruck? The batteries and the battery cells and the battery packs are all manufactured right at Giga Texas. Although, I guess I do have to, I just thought of one thing that in fact, let me double check real quick. Yeah, there is one piece. If the Cybertruck doesn't make the top 10 next year, this will probably be why. The stainless steel, the HFS. Bloomberg, I had to look this up. Bloomberg sources reported last October, right before the Cybertruck went into production, that Tesla has selected a stainless steel supplier, and it's a Finnish company. So obviously, if the entire bodywork is coming from out of the U.S., then that would probably be why the Cybertruck wouldn't make the top 10. But I got to think that all of the other core components are made right here in the USA. The drivetrains, the motors, a lot of the components on the cars. So we'll see next year's list. Again, if the Model 3 were to get qualified for the tax credit, that would mean its battery pack would be sourced from this country or from a free trade partner. And if the Cybertruck, we'll see where the Cybertruck lands on this next year as well. But I do find this to be a very interesting list, almost because of who's not on it. As I said, sort of Ford and GM not cracking that top 10, but Tesla is walking the walk on this. 3 of the top 10 are Tesla vehicles. You love to see it. All right, that'll do it for another fun week of Tesla news. Stick with me. I will be right back with more Ride the Lightning, your hotline phone calls coming up next.
Hi, this is Franz von Holzhausen, and you're listening to Ride the Lightning with Ryan McCaffrey, the Tesla unofficial podcast.
Before I get to your phone calls in the Ride the Lightning hotline, let me mention my friends at Accelerate Auto and their X-Care extended warranty coverage for your Tesla. I'm a customer myself. I've got a 3-year, 40,000-mile policy. I've used it I've had it almost a year. I've used it twice. Thankfully, just both 2 little things, but it's been nice to have the policy there. It's a $100 deductible, which is the same as Tesla's own 2-year, 25,000-mile extended warranty, which that's all you can do from Tesla. With X-Care, you can make it flexible. Like I said, I've got 3 years, 40,000 miles. You can go up to 10 years and 125,000 miles. So $100 deductible, 24/7 roadside assistance. Unlike Tesla, X-Care also offers rental reimbursement and trip interruption coverage, so that's pretty cool. Check them out. See which plan is right for you. I do genuinely recommend this. Head on over to their website, which is found at xceleratauto.com/XCARE. That's accelerateauto.com/Xcare. Don't forget the discount code LIGHTNING for $100 off your policy purchase. Sadly, the state of Florida is accepted here. State law thing that they cannot give discounts or price warranties differently for different people. But anybody else, accelerateauto.com/Xcare, $100 off discount using the code LIGHTNING. If you're in Florida, I still recommend Accelerate Auto. I just sadly can't offer you the discount on that one. But thank you kindly to my friends at Accelerate Auto for continuing to make that nice little discount available to the Ride the Lightning audience. Speaking of you guys, the Ride the Lightning audience, it is time for your phone calls from the Ride the Lightning hotline. If you've got a question, comment, or discussion topic for the podcast, I welcome and encourage you and invite you to call in and share it. You can do that anytime in one of two easy ways. Either use your smartphone's built-in voice recording software, record your question. Please try to keep it to 90 seconds or less so that I can get to as many callers each week as possible. And then email that file to me at my Tesla email address, which is teslapodcast@gmail.com. Alternatively, you can take that same 90-second or less question and just call in and leave a message anytime you like on the Ride the Lightning hotline. The toll-free number to do that is 1-888-989-8752. Again, that's 1-888-989-TSLA. And if you know someone special with an upcoming birthday, anniversary, graduation, or some other special occasion, you can give them a unique gift of recorded voices from friends and family telling them why they are special. The recordings can be podcasted or put onto a keepsake. Visit lifeonrecord.com to learn more. The first caller this week is Mike from Oregon.
Hi, Ryan. This is Mike from Oregon. I was just listening to your podcast and the discussion of the summer heat control software upgrade. It motivated me to reach out and encourage Tesla to put in a software upgrade that I've been wanting for a long time. In my home, I can set my thermostat so that it'll heat the house to 67 degrees and cool the house to 72 degrees so that I don't wind up heating and cooling in a way that responds too quickly to minor changes. Living in Oregon, and especially when I drive down to California along I-5, I wind up weaving between shade and sunny areas. On days that have fairly cool weather, the heat will come on heavy when I'm in the shade, and the bright sun will cause the car to heat up a little bit, and then I'll get blasted with air conditioning, and it just isn't the efficient way to handle my car. I wish Elon would bring Tesla HVAC into the 21st century and allow me to set heat to and cool to temperatures to improve efficiency going down the road. Thank you very much. You have a wonderful day.
I love this idea, Mike. I mean, as always, my usual caveat of I'm not a Tesla software engineer applies, but theoretically, there's nothing stopping Tesla from doing this. I think it'd be a pretty smart way to further increase the HVAC system's efficiency and, more importantly, make the human occupants of the car more comfortable more often. So, love your idea, Mike. Thank you so much for your call. Next up, Stefan from Monterey.
Hi, Ryan. It's Stefan from Monterey. Quick question. I've been trying to determine if the acceleration boost is available for the new Tesla Model 3 Highland all-wheel drive. I think I'd rather go that way than get the performance version, but I don't seem to be able to find it online, either when you go to order the car from Tesla or even on the forums. So I thought you might know. Thank you. Bye.
Hi, Stefan. Unfortunately, it is not currently available on the 3 Fresh long range. And the question that I ask myself is, why not? It was such a great thing on the previous gen Model 3. Is Tesla waiting to get maybe more fleet data to make sure that the motors are holding up how they forecasted them to before they go ahead and offer that uncorking option? Are they just trying to push you to a performance version instead if you want the extra horsepower? I'm not sure, but I'm going to choose to believe that first one, that they're just waiting on the fleet data to come in off these newer versions of the cars to make sure everything looks good and then go, okay, I think we can comfortably allow people to purchase and unlock for a little bit more horsepower here. Obviously, I don't know the total answer, the proper answer, but I guess to offer you something more substantial than just my own conjecture, I'll say this. If an acceleration boost is not available on the new long-range Model 3 by the start of next year, by January 2025, at that point, I think it's maybe more likely than not that it might not ever become available. It just seems like if it's going to happen, it'll have happened within the first year or so. So we'll see. I hope it does happen. Take care, Stefan. Thank you, as always, for your calls. Next up, another regular caller. Here's Damon from Northbrook, Illinois.
Hey, Ryan. Damon out of Northbrook, Illinois here. Just got done listening to your shareholder recap, and it got me thinking about the origins of your podcast and your enthusiasm for Tesla, being that it was an automotive company, but they've really grown the pie to be so much more than that. Do you think that they will continue to grow away from that? You know, they're solar and energy storage and autonomous software and now robotics. Do they end up being like Qualcomm, where they just make cell phone components instead of whole cell phones? Does Tesla just make hardware components and software for cars and robots and move away from the fun vehicles? Does that even have a business case for them if they're looking at things like maybe they do just the Cybercab, where it's kind of a commodity vehicle, but they're more about the service side of the software and the experience? So that's my question and concern, and curious what your thoughts are on that. As always, love the podcast and look forward to your thoughts. Take care.
You know, it's an interesting philosophical question, Damon. This seems like one of those fun discussions over a beer kind of topics, right? But now that you made me think about it, I suppose that I have to acknowledge the possibility that exactly what you bring up could definitely happen. But I don't think it will happen, if I'm being honest with you. They've still got a long way to go before they fulfill the company's mission, which, as we know, is transitioning the world to sustainable energy. They've got a lot more cars to make, and they've gotten really good at manufacturing. I mean, heck, the GigaPress innovation from Tesla is only really just now starting to be copied by other car manufacturers, just as one example. I definitely think they may go back to doing licensing deals on both the hardware and the software side eventually. And yes, I did say go back, because for those that may be newer to Tesla did a couple of licensing deals in its early days just to survive. The Toyota RAV4 EV from, I believe, 2011, it's got a range of about 150 miles, and it uses a Tesla battery and drivetrain. I think they were only sold in California. I still see them every now and again. They are fairly clearly labeled, not with a Tesla logo, but it's a RAV4 with a big old EV badge / side label thing on it. But and then the Daimler Smart Car EV in Europe around the same time as that 2011 RAV4 is also Tesla powered. There was also a licensing arrangement there between Tesla and Daimler. So we now today we know that Tesla is ready and willing to license FSD. But I could see them doing the same for batteries and drivetrains again, as they used to, once their own in-house cell supply gets strong enough. It'd be in the service of the company's mission, right? And if I'm a legacy automaker, if I'm on the other side of this arrangement, I'm a legacy automaker looking to press fast forward on the inevitable electrification of my company's fleet, then Tesla could just about name any price for their licensing deal, and I would pay it, because for those car companies, those legacy automakers who wait too long, it's either that or go out of business if you wait too long to get in the game on your own terms. So, Damon, thank you very much for that thought-provoking call. And finally here we've got Brad from Minnesota. Go ahead, Brad.
Thanks, Ryan. I have a question that you will not be able to answer, but an observation that came from my month of full self-driving, which just ended. I enjoyed it. It was okay. Would never buy it. But now that my car has reverted back to autopilot, I just do not understand why autopilot cannot get better, mostly with just following a straight line on the road. I mean, is Tesla okay when other people on the road see my car on autopilot veering to the left or to the right when the lines aren't particularly straight? I mean, under full self-driving, the car did fine. Followed a straight line. Goes back to autopilot, and I'm all over the road, and it's embarrassing. Like, for the first time, I'm embarrassed. Isn't Tesla embarrassed as well? Wouldn't Tesla want to make normal autopilot kind of follow the same trajectory as full self-driving as it relates to just following a straight line on the highway? I don't get it. Anyway, that's my question. It's unanswerable because you're not Tesla, but oh my gosh, embarrassing.
Hey, Brad. Well, you're right that I can't definitively answer your question, but I do want to offer a ray of hope here. While I don't condone Tesla seemingly ignoring further development on basic autopilot in favor of dedicating all of its autopilot team resources to FSD, and I certainly understand why they've made that choice, my hope is that the legacy autopilot stack, the one running in your car now, that since your FSD trial has ended, will be replaced by the FSD stack when FSD supervised version 12.5 is released. Why do I say that? Because as you know, the Cybertruck currently does not have any autopilot whatsoever, let alone FSD. And a month ago, Elon said that the Cybertruck would get FSD with version 12.5 because that's when the highway stack and the city streets stacks will merge into a single stack. Suddenly I'm hungry for a stack of pancakes. I can't imagine why. Anyway, unfortunately, when 12.5 does hit the Cybertrucks, we still won't know whether or not my hope/hypothesis there is correct, because every single Cybertruck currently delivered comes with FSD included. But perhaps the rest of the fleet will give us the answer to that once 12.5 rolls out. Fingers crossed for good news there, because you are absolutely right that basic autopilot can and should be better. Thank you, Brad, for your call. Thanks to everybody that kindly took the time to call in. If you've got a Tesla question, comment, or discussion topic, please feel free, please feel welcomed and invited to call in with it. I gave you the 2 easy call-in options at the top of this segment, but I'm not quite done. There is more Ride the Lightning coming up right after this. I am looking forward to a fun, car-tastic weekend here in the first official weekend of summer, although you'd never know it here in San Francisco. I had a jacket, actually 2 layers of jacket plus a beanie on when I was walking the dog after work today, because the fog and the wind, it just gets awful. It's like, it's in the 50s, basically, the low 50s. It just gets, it's like, oh my goodness. It's, I guess, like, if global warming it continues to be a thing, which of course it will, then maybe San Francisco is somewhat insulated from it, because we have, even if it gets warmer here, still it'll just be nice instead of hot. But anyway, big car weekend coming up for me tomorrow as I record this. So Saturday is the, I don't know how many annual, maybe 3rd annual, maybe 4th annual Teslas and Tacos event with the Tesla Owners of Silicon Valley Club at a detailing shop down on the peninsula, down between San Francisco and San Jose. I'm always looking forward to that. It's nice to see a lot of club people, a lot of friends, a lot of cool cars, a lot of custom stuff. So that in years past has been a good event, and I'm looking forward to that tomorrow. Thankfully, my car's already still clean from last weekend. I don't have to wash it again. And then Sunday, Sunday I was going to go, I had it in my notes, like, oh yeah, the same event I went to last year, the Hillsborough Concours d'Elegance, which is a super fancy car show with, unbelievable cars at this thing. I'm talking the cherry, just mint, perfect turn of the last century cars, like early, I'm talking 1920s, 1930s kind of stuff, on up through modern supercars. And I went to buy a ticket actually online right before I recorded this podcast. I was like, yeah, I'll go on Sunday and it'll be fun because my wife and daughter are out of town, so it's just me anyway. So it's like, well, this is the perfect weekend to nerd out on cars. $70 a ticket they want. The admission to the Peterson Auto Museum is less than that by like a lot. So I don't know. I'm trying to save up for my Cybertruck. I just today, in fact, put in my June contribution to my Cybertruck savings fund, and I couldn't quite do as much as I have been doing each month and couldn't quite do as much as I wanted to do. So I'm like, well, do I really want to spend $70 to go see cool cars for a couple hours? I mean, yes, but no, I'm not going to do it because, I mean, I went to the show last year before last year, I hadn't been to it in quite a while. So this year, like, all right, I'll skip this year, maybe go next year. Next year, I'll be able to I'm not show my Cybertruck, but I'll be able to drive to the show and park and just take the Cybertruck to it, which I did learn last year, because last year was my first year as a non-participant, just a show attendee, because as I'm sure I told you last year when I went to the Hillsborough show, the previous times I'd attended were as an owner showing a car. My DeLorean, I applied to be in that show with my DeLorean for a few years and was accepted. And so I would show a car, so I would never see the regular parking lot. So last year, I parked in the regular parking lot as a show attendee, and the regular parking lot at the Hillsborough Concours d'Elegance is practically a car show unto itself. There's a lot of cool stuff that people just bring, that they drive to the car show. But anyway, it'll still be a fun time at Teslas and Tacos, and I'll keep my $70 in my pocket, saving up towards my Cybertruck. Entertainment recommendation for you. Well, a show that I've been enjoying, at least the first season. Season 2 now has begun for House of the Dragon, the Game of Thrones spinoff that's on Max, the artist formerly known as HBO. So if you enjoy Game of Thrones, that is now back on, if you had not heard. Pro tip of the week time. Here is AJ from Vancouver.
Hey Ryan, how's it going? This is AJ from Vancouver. I'm not sure if someone has already mentioned this. I'm a little bit behind on your podcast. I apologize. But I think I found a little nugget here with this new 14.8 update. So if you are an Apple Music and Apple Podcast subscriber, now you can turn off explicit content. And I don't mind that content personally, but whenever I'm with my kids, I like to turn it off. So instead of going into the settings and turning it on and off every single time, what I've done here is I've created a new driver's profile. It says AJ with kids, and I have it turned off under that driver's profile. So every time I'm with my kids, I can just toggle to the correct driver's profile, and it turns off all the explicit content for us. I thought it was pretty neat. I hope some of your listeners find this useful. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you later.
AJ, I love this tip. Boy, it turns out that creating different driver profiles for various things really is a whole pro tip cottage industry unto itself. It's so useful for so many things, just making custom profiles. But this is great thinking on your part for when your kids are in the car with you and when they're not. So, AJ, thank you very much for sharing this one. I love this. If anybody else out there has a good Tesla pro tip of the week that you'd like to share with me and your fellow Tesla owners and enthusiasts, you can send it in the same way that you send in the regular Ride the Lightning hotline calls. There are 2 easy ways to do that, and I gave you those instructions a little while ago, so just refer back there. Before I scoot out of here for my car-tastic weekend, I want to mention some friends of Ride the Lightning. I'll start with AbstractOcean.com. They have a ton of different awesome aftermarket accessories. In fact, I have not checked in a while. I'm going to do that right now as I'm talking to you. Let's see if they've added any new Cybertruck stuff, out of curiosity. Let's see. Ooh, ultra bright lights for the Cybertruck. So replacing the puddle lights in the doors on both sides, replacing the rear footwell lights and the front foot. Okay, so yeah, if you want to brighten those up, that's a $10 kit. That's all it is. And you can swap those out and you have a nice brighter white LED kit in there. There's also, the center cap for the Cybertruck, since they're still not delivering them with the cyber wheel covers, and you're just you're forced to rock the wheel underneath. If you want to fill in that open center cap, Abstract Ocean is selling a really nice one that's got the Cybertruck silhouette on it, the triangle silhouette, so it looks very stock, which I'm a fan of. So that's a set of 4 there is $54, which is currently on sale from $60, so that's 10% off. Let's see. There's just a bunch of stuff for Cybertruck for everything. I mean, SX3Y, Cybertruck, even Rivian R1T, R1S, tons of great stuff for whichever Tesla you own. Check them out, abstractocean.com. Pile everything you like into your online shopping cart, and then when you get to checkout, use the coupon code RTLPodcast to get 15% off of your first order. That's all one word, RTL Podcast, no spaces in there. Get that 15% discount on your first order. The Snap Plate and the new Snap Plate Plus are available at everyamp.com/RTL, and the Every Amp folks have now kindly been offering a discount here for a little while to all of you, which I'm grateful for. The coupon code is simply RTL on that one. And again, if you're not familiar, the Snap Plate and Snap Plate Plus, these are the front license plate brackets that I personally recommend if you either want or are legally required, or both, to have a front license plate on your Tesla. The ones that Tesla gives you use an automotive tape, an adhesive, to physically stick to your painted front bumper. And if you ever want to take it off, it's not going to go well with regard to the paint, and it's just, you're going to have a mess of tape residue behind. Just don't use that one. Get yourself a Snap Plate or the stronger reinforced Snap Plate Plus, and you'll be happy. There's a discount code again, so go to everyamp.com/RTL and use the coupon code RTL. How about budgetsafesolar.com? In the most San Francisco fashion possible, the solstice, which was yesterday as I record this, the longest day of the year, it was cloudy and windy and miserable here, which means what should have been, on paper, the best day of solar generation for me all year with my Budget Safe Solar setup was the worst one in weeks. But that's okay, because there's now sun with like clear skies in the forecast for like the next week. So we're here in the longest days of the year. I should be generating some serious solar power in the coming week or more, hopefully. And if that sounds good to you, if you'd like to be generating solar power for your home and for your car, because you can fuel your car from the sky for free. I mean, you've got to buy the solar system, of course, but why pay the utility company any more than you absolutely have to? And that's just myself talking about our utility company here in my area. But anyway, budgetsafesolar.com. Keep them on your short list if you are looking into getting some solar, because you're going to price out a few different places, no doubt. Just make sure that Budget Safe Solar is one of them. And if you do end up proceeding with an installation on your home or business from Budget Safe Solar, just make sure you use the referral code RTL. Getting towards the end here, I want to mention Immaculate Reflections, as I always like to. Jeff McGovern is the gentleman's name that is the owner and master detailer at Immaculate Reflections. As I've said many times before, and I'll say many more times, and I mean it every single time, he is an incredibly awesome detailer and an even more awesome human being. The friendship that I've formed with this gentleman over the years here, it started as just an awesome sort of local business arrangement where he wanted to be mentioned on the podcast, and I was like, sure, let's do that. And I've had so much stuff done on my car with him. All the PPF replacement from when the PPF, as all of you know that have been listening for a while, has saved my bacon, or well, specifically my paint. It saved my original factory paint several times. So I adore Jeff. His work really is immaculate. Like, it's the guy. I challenge you. I will put his work. I'm not trying to disparage anybody else out there. There are plenty of talented detailers, but Jeff is right there. He does incredible work. If you are going to be in the greater San Francisco Bay Area, I definitely recommend you swing on by. Before you do, you're going to want to book an appointment. To do that, go to his website, which is irdetailing.com. And when you reach out through his website, just make sure to mention that you're a Ride the Lightning listener, and he will offer you the Ride the Lightning listener discount. Maybe you're doing ceramic coating. Maybe you're doing paint protection film on some or all of the car. Maybe you're doing paint correction. Get that finish looking as awesome as it possibly can. Maybe you want to do 2 of those or all of those. Whatever the case may be, Immaculate Reflections will take great care of you and your car. So again, check them out, irdetailing.com. Finally, the Patreon, I mentioned it earlier in the podcast at least. You can find it at patreon.com/Tesla Podcast. Patreon spelled Patreon. That is the place you can go to if you want to give back to the podcast. If you feel like you get a lot out of it each and every week, I'm here for you each and every week, every single Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific. I take a lot of pride in that, and it's work. It's definitely not an easy thing. But I enjoy doing it. I take a lot of pride in doing it. And if at some point, and maybe today's the day, maybe this is the week, that you want to reach into your heart and say, yes, this is the week, Ryan, I want to support you and what you're doing with Ride the Lightning, you can do that on my Patreon. The support tiers start at just $5 a month, and that will get you early access to each week's episode as a thank you. If you want to step up to that $10 per month tier, that's the most popular tier, you will get that early access each week, and you'll get all 101 and counting of those lightning round mini episodes that I do exclusively for Patreon each and every week. The support tiers and the perks go up and stack from there. So again, take a look if you get a chance. I'd be humbled and grateful if you did. It's patreon.com/Tesla Podcast. Most of you statistically get this podcast through Apple Podcasts, but if you're not following me on one of the major podcast services, whether it's Apple Podcasts or Spotify or TuneIn or YouTube Podcasts, I recommend that you do. It's totally free. It just means if you click that follow button on Ride the Lightning here, you will get the new episode pushed out to you each week. You don't have to remember, oh yeah, wait, is it Sunday? Oh yeah, new episode. Nope, it'll just be sent right to you, right on your device, no problem. So head on over to your favorite podcast service and search for Ride the Lightning Tesla Podcast. You should find me nice and easily that way. You can follow me on Twitter X, I should say, X and or Instagram. I have the same username on both. That username is DMC_Ryan. And you can email me anytime. My Tesla Podcast email address is simply teslapodcast@gmail.com. And before I get out of here, I want to mention, I don't want to end on a sour note, so I do want to mention this. I'll do this now, and then I'll shout out the upper tier Patreon backers. While I was recording here, a kind listener by the name of Louis Ferreira, Louis, I hope I'm pronouncing your last name correctly, pointed me to a video post on X, which just saddens me to see. This is terrible. It is dozens, and I do mean dozens, of Cybertrucks in South Florida, Fort Lauderdale specifically, that are in a staging lot. They've been, shipped out from Giga Texas and are being prepped for delivery to maybe some of you are waiting for a Cybertruck in the Fort Lauderdale area right now. If that is the case, I hate to be the bearer of bad news if you haven't already heard by the time you hear this, but these trucks, almost every single one of them in this video, have been vandalized. They've had in black spray paint, they've had a bad word that starts with F and Elon spray painted onto the hoods of every single one of them. And in some of the cases, it's kind of tough to tell, but some of them also have it on at least one side of the truck as well. And this is it's just a shame to see. I mean, you know, if you don't like somebody for whatever reason, be an adult and don't. I get that you think you're not that the perpetrator of this is not listening to this podcast, but just like be a grown up and express your discontent like an adult, which is to just don't vandalize other people's property. Because now, okay, yes, you've harmed the company by creating either additional labor hours, you know, money spent by Tesla needed to clean all these trucks up. At least, though, they can be cleaned up because it's stainless. So these trucks should, I think, clean up just fine. And that's the good news. But, I mean, I'd still, if I were getting one of these trucks, I'd be looking at the hoods very carefully, and I'd not be throwing, you know, it's a tough spot. It's for the owners. I mean, they didn't ask for this. So I guess I said at the very top of the show that it was going to be all good news, and now as I'm recording, there's a little bit of not good news here. But at least the good news is these should all clean up with no evidence left behind. And hopefully the takeaway from Tesla here is that at this location and at other staging locations like this where there are going to be Cybertrucks around, they probably should be hiring security of some kind. And yes, that's an added expense. So okay, perpetrator, if you've successfully cost Tesla some money, I suppose there's that, but just a real shame. Just a real shame. It's tough to see this. I mean, I'm a person, I have a lot of respect for anybody's personal property. Like if I'm at a car show, I've got hands behind my back. I'm not touching anything. Like, it's people work really hard for their money and for the things that they care about in life, whether it's their car, whether it's their home, their whatever the case it is. And it kind of boils. I'm having to kind of restrain myself here. This is very infuriating to me. So anyway, I know none of us can do anything about it, but I just thought I'd mention it because it is a unfortunate act of vandalism that has struck the Tesla community here this past weekend. Okay, back to happy things, and that is shouting out the Maximum Plaid, Roadster in Space, and the grandfathered in Plaid level supporters. These are all extremely kind and generous folks that have of their own kindness chosen to give back to the podcast, chosen to support what I'm doing here. And as one of the perks, they get all the perks, including getting their name shouted out at the end of each week's show. I will start with the Maximum Plaid crew. Big thanks to Jonathan Wales, Cameron Clark, Daniel Grummer, Seth Capello, Nick and Tony, the Galpin family, Ryan from New York City, Darren Nickel, Kaz Barnes, Brett Libano, Patrick Wisniewski, Gil Cabrera, Todd Badger, Joe Edgel, Kevin Yank, the Tesla Owners Club of San Joaquin Valley, Michael Williams, Will Stedman, Justin Perez, Jeremy Harris, Chris Beach, Tom Mills, Corey O'Donnell, Aaron, John Cody, Joel Sapp, Paul Casarino, Richard Corley, Chris Osborne, KB, Doug Carey, Adam Lavoie, ContactOneCallCenter.com, Jason Chalukas, Travis Krenzel, Bruce Otterstein, Tom Behan, Josh Pennington, John from Cream Ridge, New Jersey, Sean Tisdale, Dustin Hart, Michael Gallo, Derek Finley, Charles Clement, Rav, Adam Christie, and Damon Klein. Big thanks to all of you. Thanks as well to the Roadster in Space tier backers who, in addition to all the other perks, including the monthly Patreon Zoom hangout that the Maximum Plaid crew gets, the Roadster in Space crew also gets a one-on-one chat with me each month if they elect to take it. And I want to say thank you to Lawton from Chicago, who we just chatted this past week, and the hour flew by. We went a little over, as we often do, because we just have a good time chatting about Tesla and life too. It's been awesome to get to know a lot of you out there. So big thanks to the rest of the Roadster in Space tier backers. They are Pete White, Lyle Austin, Steve Radspinner, Fernando Cordero, Sean Neidig, Neil Weaver, Jackson Wallace, Rolf and Jennifer Evers, Howard Anthony Smith, Victoria Iacovetto, Tesla Hitchhiker 42, Carol Weston, Robert from Near Philly, Kristen Rumble, American Home Contractors, and GetAmber.com. And finally, the grandfathered in Plaid level supporters. The Plaid tier is officially no more, but these kind and generous folks continue to back me at that tier, and as such, I give them all the perks that they are entitled to at that tier, including their shout-outs. So, thanks so much to George Cassiopo, Logan Willis, Peter Chalet, Eric Randolph, Dory and Steve Guberman, the Tesla Owners Club of Taiwan, Ron Lee, Charlie Gillespie, Dennis Peak, Jeff Angwin, Chase Cabanillas, the Lydia family, Aaron Altschul, Jared Brown, Jerome Strack, Jamie Dalton, Mike and Barbara from Louisville, Matt Nixon, the Tesla Owners Club of Wisconsin, Ish, not Elon Musk, Peter, and the Bear Boys of Colorado. I want to thank all of you at all of the different Patreon tiers. Your generosity really does make a huge difference in my life and in my family's life. And I think I mentioned this last weekend, but speaking of my family's life, we have the date now for when our next canine companion service dog puppy will be coming home. It is July 22nd, which is a Monday, thankfully, because I remember Zelina came home on a Friday, so I did the first whatever episode that was November 9th of 2022. I don't know why the date sticks in my head, but I did a show that night, so that would have been whatever I said at the end of the podcast probably I should go back and listen. That would have been a fun little time capsule of Zelina's first day. And now Zelina is going on to graduate and become a service dog who's going to help somebody out. So that's pretty cool. But yes, the next puppy, we don't know the name yet, is July 22nd. So in fact, I've actually there's a busy July coming up because, let me see here. I've got I guess I don't have to bore all of you with it, but Tesla-wise, there is the X Takeover, which they've very kindly invited me back for another year. I'm going to be moderating a couple panels. As I've mentioned a few times, we're going to be doing the Ride the Lightning listener meetup on Saturday, July 27th as well. There's going to be a ton of stuff. Franz von Holzhausen, the chief designer of Tesla and two-time guest of this podcast, is giving a keynote speech at the X Takeover. And that's also on Saturday. So that is coming up at the end of the month. So just over a month away now. It's like 5 weeks out. If you are able to make it, I'm looking forward to seeing you there and meeting you. That's going to be a really, really good time. And with that, for a snoozing Daisy the Boxer, I'm Ryan McCaffrey. Of course, this was a palindrome, episode 464 of Ride the Lightning, your weekly Tesla unofficial podcast. Hope you enjoyed this one, and I will see you all back here next week, of course, every Sunday, 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific.
Elon Musk, people don't like Elon Musk. The guy founded PayPal and Tesla, and people are like, yeah, but he's a troll and a bad dad. I'm like, so was mine. He did nothing to fight climate change. Also, have you been in a Tesla? Have you been in a Tesla? My buddy let me drive his Tesla. I laughed out loud at how fast it went. Been clinically depressed my entire life, on dozens of medications, in a Tesla for 13 seconds, cured forever.
I mean, I think a Tesla is the most fun thing you could possibly buy ever. That's what it's meant to be. Our goal is to make it's not exactly a car. It's actually a thing to maximize enjoyment. It's maximum fun.